I'm Aishlyn, welcome back to Collection Cut Down. Today's video is on 300, directed by Zack Snyder. Before we get into that, I want to just do a quick update on where we are so far in my little project, because we've done 10 reviews, 10 films, and so far I have kept 5 and given away 5, so I think that's actually pretty good odds. I'm pretty happy with that, and hopefully I can continue that as we go forward. Back to 300. When this first came out, it was considered quite visually interesting and unique and even groundbreaking. I think no one had ever quite seen anything that looked like it before. I did think that it was a very interesting film to watch in that sense, like it was interesting to look at it. On the other hand, I don't think I ever got quite emotionally caught up in the story. The film is based on the real-life Battle of Thermopylae, which happened in ancient Greece. 300 Spartans against the 10,000 strong army, something like that. I did learn about the actual real-life battle before I ever heard about the comic book or saw the film. I did history in both high school and uni, so that was interesting. I remember when it came out, I was quite excited to see what they do with it. It's not really that close to history as I remember it. They kind of took the idea and then, you know, used that as a basis for the film and the comic book rather than it being a direct adaptation, but that's fine. I'll probably maybe talk about this more after I've seen the film again, but you know, when Zack Snyder directed this, he was considered a bit of a visionary, a wonderkind type thing, and I think everybody was very excited for his career. And as his career has progressed, like, the cracks have really started to show for me. I know that he's got his fans, and that's fine. I haven't really enjoyed any of his films. Like, parts of them, yes, absolutely, sure. But I think the things that, you know, I overlooked in 300 have been increasingly on display in his subsequent films. Particularly, I think he's not that great with character. I'll sort of see and reassess that once I rewatch the film, because I do remember that being the thing that I was struck by in this. You know, it was definitely just how incredible it looked, like a comic book, more than, you know, me really getting emotionally involved in the story or the characters. It definitely has a great cast. I like Jared Butler, but he's been getting a pass from me for years. One day you guys will find out which of his films is the one that's made me like him enough to do that. I also like Dominic West, David Wenham, and Lena Headey. I think they're all great, so you know, there is a lot to like about this film, and you know, it's still very pervasive in our culture. I mean, the "this is Sparta" meme was around for quite some time, and it's still very recognizable even if people don't quote it as often. So, you know, I think in many ways this film is a cultural touchstone. It is significant in many ways. I think it did change filmmaking, whether for the better or the worse, I'm not qualified to say. So the thing is, I haven't really revisited this film since I've seen more of Zack Snyder's work, and it's really just in retrospect, I'm, you know, remembering things about it, but you know, it will be nice to see it, assess it on its own merits and try and separate it from how I feel about Zack Snyder's later career, and really just recapture what it was that I found so intriguing about this one originally. Because, you know, I'm a history nerd, I love comic book films, there's a lot that I should love about this film, so I'm hoping that I do again, and the kind of feeling that I've got right now is just purely based on being disappointed with later work rather than it being about this film itself. I will see you all in 2 hours. I mean, it's a very cool looking movie, there's no denying that. I did find the slow-mo in the fight scenes did get a little bit tiresome after a while. It's like, yeah, we've seen that. As a visually innovative film, I think it really did pave the way for a lot of films that came after. It's an important part of film canon in that way. Even apart from the visuals, there's stuff that I enjoyed about it. I did really like Lena Headey's character, no surprise, you know, strong badass women is kind of my thing. I would have liked for her to have more to do. Did okay in making her quite an active participant in the film. However, also no surprise, I kind of checked out after the rape scene. It's just, those stories are not stories that I enjoy watching, and I kind of wish that we'd do away with that. I don't think that it necessarily needed to be in the film. It apparently wasn't even in the comics, so it was, you know, added to this, which makes it worse. I did think it was pretty cool that they used actual quotes from history, things like the "come back with your shield" or "on it." You know, I remember quoting that in an essay about this battle, or at least about this time period, back in high school. So, you know, that's fun that there was that element of history there. Other than that, you know, it wasn't particularly historically accurate, but that's okay. I think they did some fun things with it. I have mixed feelings about the Persians. I know that modern day Iranians were quite upset with the way the Persians were portrayed in this film, and I can kind of see why. The weird elements of the film, particularly involving them, I quite liked that. I found that interesting and fun, and like a fun way to sort of make history more comic booky. They do try and mitigate it by saying in the film itself, oh, this is the battle from Sparta's point of view. It's still quite othering. I think we've got other stories we can tell now. Pretty much everything about this film I'm finding is a mixed bag. Like, it has good points, it has bad points. Similarly with the voiceover done by David Wenham, he does a very good job, and it's sort of fun to have that story within a story element. Like, I quite like that narratively. On the other hand, I do think that it was kind of overused. Particularly, I think it undercut the emotion of the relationship between Leonidas and his queen. Spartans are notoriously, like, stoic. That's kind of their thing. So the fact that Leonidas and Giorgio didn't say, like, I love you, or I miss you, or don't die, or whatever, and they kind of communicated in silences. I think the fact that the narration then said what they were thinking kind of ruined the moment a bit. Like, I didn't think it was necessary for them to point out that the two of them hadn't said any words, but there was all this emotion behind it, because the actors did a good job and it was there on their face. The visuals are definitely the standout here. This film would probably have disappeared and never to be seen again had it not looked so cool and so innovative and different, and like nothing anybody had ever seen before. This is totally a personal thing, but I also didn't enjoy watching Dominic West be a bad guy, because I really like him and he's in one of my favourite films. I never like watching my favourites play bad guys. Sometimes it can be fun, but other times, particularly if they're like rapists, and it's like, no, not something that I enjoy. Probably means that they're playing it really well, because it's scheming me out. Obviously, I wish there was more characters, female characters with speaking parts, but, you know, I get used to these movies where there's like, if there's a woman character, you get one. I wouldn't have been too upset if they just randomly added women with speaking parts, like, I don't know, make them a soldier or something. The Spartan women were pretty fierce. I could see them getting out there on the battlefield. My favourite moment of the film was when she killed Dominic West's character, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, the traitor and rapist. It sucks that, you know, she had to go through what she went through before that, and, you know, I think it still would have been satisfying if he'd betrayed her in other ways. I'm glad that she at least got her revenge for that. Right, so what's my verdict on 300? You know, honestly, I think this is one of the hardest choices I've had to make so far, because it really is a hit or miss film for me. There's a lot of cool stuff I like about it. I like the history. I like how cool it looks, you know, and I love action movies and I love comic book movies, but for some reason I didn't find it as enjoyable as I wanted to, and maybe that I found it the first time, and I think that it just has too much baggage for me. Partially it's Zack Snyder and his subsequent career, and part of it is the sexual assault scene. There's just too much there that puts me off, that I can't really immerse myself in it. It's difficult to explain because some movies I, you know, see all the flaws and I just get so much enjoyment out of them anyway, but for some reason this isn't one of them, despite the fact that I kind of feel like maybe it should be. I'm kind of torn, but I think this is my DVD collection and I don't feel like I should keep things out of obligation. Despite the fact that there is a lot I like about the film, I think ultimately I don't think I'm gonna choose to watch it again. I wouldn't object to seeing it again, though I'll probably walk out the room in certain scenes. I think there's other sort of historical epics that could satisfy that craving, even though in many ways it is a unique film. I think I have to say, look, I'm gonna give it away. I think that that's really the only choice that I should make. If I end up regretting it, I don't think it would be difficult for me to acquire another version of this. I don't think it's gonna go out of print anytime soon. So that kind of, you know, just tips me over the edge and says, yeah, I think that I can do without this one in my collection. So despite my obsession with series, I've actually never seen the sequel to this, and therefore it's not the next film on the list. We're moving into the A's now. We've finished all the numbers, and so the first one in the A's is a pretty obscure film called The Abduction Club. And it is a historical romance that I haven't seen in a very long time. We're sticking with history, but a totally different vibe and totally different period of history, so it's going to be fun to revisit this one. If you've been enjoying my videos, please consider subscribing and commenting, liking, however you want to interact. I actually really love talking about films, so if you want to talk to me about 300 or any of the other films I've reviewed, or films in general, feel free to leave a comment and I'll reply. I'll see you all next time for The Abduction Club, but in the meantime, goodbye and happy watching.